and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be filming another book recommendations video, and today we're going to be talking about single parent romance books. This is one of my favorite tropes of all time. I love this trope so much. I'd probably say it's my favorite trope. I've read so many single parent books, mostly single dad because that's what I like to read, but I do have a few single mom ones in here as well. But yeah, this is one of my favorite tropes of all time, so let's just go ahead and get into the video. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to be recommending to you guys today is The Darkest Sunrise Duet by Ali Martinez. I recently read this duet and oh my goodness, it was one of the best books I've ever read. It's so amazing. It was the first book I've ever read from Ali Martinez and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so this book is a single dad romance. Like I said, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I was bawling my eyes out while reading this. It's so sad. I literally read it in like a day. So yeah, this follows Charlotte and Porter, and basically Charlotte had a kid from a one night stand that she had, and she got pregnant and she had a baby boy, and then she found out that he was going to need a heart transplant, and obviously this is devastating news, but he went on the wait list to get that. And then one day she was walking in the park, pushing along the pram with a baby in it, and then she's a doctor and she saw a mum who needed help with her kid. He was like, he couldn't breathe or something, and so she ran over there to help and left her baby unattended. And we can see where this is going. Unfortunately, he was taken, and fast forward 10 years later, they never found him. But they don't know if he died or if he's still out there somewhere, or they don't know because they never found a body, they never found him, so they have no idea. So she's been living with this for 10 years and is obviously devastated, and she's still not, she hasn't like grieved properly and never got like closure on the situation. So then she meets Porter Reese, and oh my god, Porter is everything. And he has a little boy who is really sick, and the area that Charlotte specializes in, because she's a doctor like I said, is the particular illness that his kid Travis has. And so he is wanting her to treat him, but she doesn't treat kids because of everything that she's happened. She's very traumatized, and so she doesn't like to interact with kids at all. And so she's like I can't treat your kid, like I'm sorry. And then he is like, he needs to convince him, because she's the best doctor and he's been to every doctor. He needs her to help Travis. And so he's like, all right, he goes and takes her lunch one day at work, and then he has every intention of convincing her to help treat Travis, but he sees the same darkness in her that he has in him, and they're both very broken people, and he ends up being really drawn to her and has this connection with her, and he kind of not forgets to ask about Travis, but just kind of like gets caught up in her, and they end up forming this connection and they start going out together, and things kind of go from there. There is a massive plot twist in this book that I did not see coming. I was like, oh my god, like I kind of guessed it about like 70% into the first book, and I was like, maybe that's what's happening, but I was like, no, there's absolutely no way. That's crazy. And then I was right. That is the first book that I'm going to be recommending today. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to be recommending is Mr. Masters by T.L. Swan. This is one of my favorite single dad books of all time. Oh my goodness, it is so good. So basically this follows Bree and Julian. Julian is obviously Mr. Masters, and Bree gets this nanny job in England, and it's like a live-in nanny job, and she thinks that she's going to meet a female who has kids. No, it's actually Julian, and she's like shocked when she sees him. She's like, oh my goodness, you are extremely good looking, what is this? But he is so rude to her. So it's enemies to lovers, but he's absolutely rude to her. And anyway, she ends up taking this job, living with them, nannying the kids. Yeah. And so things kind of go from there. He doesn't really want to form a relationship with her because his kids like really like her. Well, one of them does, the other one's a little hard to do it. She's a teenager though, so you know. It's like, I can't jeopardize that. My kids can't lose another person in their lives. And so they you know, decide to get together in like secret, and they kind of have these like personas when they're outside of like the house, and it's like, it's so good. This book is so steamy, phenomenal, amazing, perfect. Julian is everything, and I just love this book so much. So the next book that I'm going to be recommending is Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. This book I recently read, and oh my goodness, this whole series is phenomenal. This is the third book in a series, but you can read it as a standalone. I would recommend reading the whole series just to get the dynamic of Keenan and Lotus from the last book, because they have this connection throughout both of the first two books that you see, and it's kind of like a build up, and then once you get to the last book, it's like, oh my god, finally they're getting together, it's finally happening. But yeah, the build up is like really amazing, so I definitely recommend reading the whole series. Every single book is phenomenal. 5 out of 5 stars. I loved every single one, but this book in particular is a single dad romance. So this follows Keenan and Lotus, and this is a basketball romance, so I was very excited to read this series because if you guys don't know, I play basketball. It was just like a really amazing thing. And so Keenan has a little girl. He went through a awful divorce. His ex-wife is an absolute bitch. She is terrible. She ended up moving Simone, who is his kid, and she got on this reality show, and she moved to New York. And so on the off season, Keenan moves up to New York to be closer to Simone, and then Lotus lives in New York, and he's obviously already met Lotus and had all these interactions with Lotus throughout the first two books, but Lotus is very closed off to love because of something traumatic that happened to her when she was younger. There is a lot of trigger warnings in this whole series and this book, so I definitely recommend looking those up before reading. But yeah, so Lotus went through something really traumatic when she was younger, and so she's very closed off to intimacy and connecting on a deeper level with guys, and that's why she doesn't want to have any interaction with Keenan, because she sees potential there for a lot of a deeper level relationship, and so she doesn't want to really get to know him. But he's in New York, and she's a fashion designer, and so she works in this for this big company, and Keenan ends up doing like a watch campaign or something for them, and so they're like working together, seeing each other all the time. Keenan's like, I'm not giving up on her, like I'm gonna fight for her, and I'm gonna like I want to get to know her. And eventually they do start getting together and things start happening, and it's super cute. I will say there isn't a lot of interaction with Simone and Keenan, and even Simone and Lotus in this book. It's more just about their relationship, like Keenan and Lotus, but overall phenomenal. This book is just, it's stunning. I'm obsessed with it. It's so good. So definitely read this book, and the whole series is amazing. The next book I'm going to be recommending to you today is British Bedmate by Keelan and Penelope Ward, previously known as Dear Bridget, I Want You. This book is a single mum romance. Just thought I'd throw this one in there. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I've literally read it like 4 or 5 times. I'm obsessed. This is the 5th book in the standalone series by Keelan and Penelope Ward. This is one of my favorite series by them. Obviously they're all standalones, and they all follow different people, and they're all so funny, quick, fast-paced, easy to read, amazing. But this book in particular is a single parent romance. So this follows Simon and Bridget, and Simon is on his last couple of months of his like residency in America, because he's from England, hence British Bedmate, and his lease is up on his apartment, and he's only gonna be in the country for a couple more months, so he needs a place to stay temporarily. And Bridget has a like back room in her house or something, and her like best friend is best friends with Simon, and so she's like, hey, I have a place for you to stay, you can come stay with me. He ends up moving in there for the rest of his time, and he also gets he's a doctor, and Bridget is a nurse, and he gets transferred to her hospital, so they're going to be working together at the hospital as well. And yes, so he moves in, he's really attracted to her, and she's really attracted to him, and they have all this like sexual chemistry, sexual tension. It's just like, it's crazy. But Bridget's like, why would he want me? Like, because she's older, not by that much. He's like 27 and she's like 32, I think. I'm not your type, like why would you want to be with me? But Simon's like, I don't know, I want you. And so in this connection, things happen. He writes her this letter and it's like amazing. And his interactions with Ben, her son, is her son named Ben? No, I think it's Brendan or Brandon. I don't remember. His interactions with her son are literally adorable. It's so cute. He's like 11 or 12, and it's just like they form this connection and it's just adorable. But you know, obviously he's moving back to England soon, so that's going to cause some complications. And there's also a big plot twist in this book. If you know by Keelan and Penelope Ward's books, you know there's always massive plot twists, and this book is no exception. It has the craziest of plot twists that I did not see coming, and I was absolutely shook. But yeah, this book is amazing. Read it. Okay, so the next book I'm going to be recommending to you is To Hate Adam Connor by Ella Macy, I believe. I could be wrong. It's on the screen. This book follows Adam and Lucy, and Lucy has just gone through a really bad breakup and needs a place to stay, and so her best friend offers the room at her place, and she is married to a famous actor, and so they live in a really like prestigious community of like, you know, where all the actors live, you know what I'm talking about. They live there, and so Adam is going through a divorce, and he moved out of his house. He got the house next door to where Lucy is staying, and he moved in there with his little 5-year-old boy who is adorable. And yeah, so Lucy finds out that he's moving in, and she's like, oh my god, like he's really hot, let's just look over the fence and see if I can catch him like working out in his backyard or something like that. Her and her best friend end up looking over the fence, and they see Adam working out with his little boy. He's encouraging him and like cheering him on while he does push-ups or something, and Lucy thinks this is the most adorable thing ever, and so she decides that she's gonna keep looking over the fence. And it's not like obsessively or anything, it's just like once every couple of days she'll just have a look over the fence to see if she can see him in his backyard or something like that. And he's also a famous actor, hence why he lives in this area and in this house. And anyway, one day she is looking over the fence and she sees the little boy, and he fell into the pool or something. He's only like 5 and he can't swim, and he fell into the pool and he's like screaming for help. No one's coming to help him, and she's like, oh my god, like I have to do something. And so she jumps over the fence and she saves the little boy, and then Adam comes out and is like, oh my god, what are you doing? Because obviously he's used to people like, you know, stalking him, fans, such things like that. And so he's like, you're trespassing on my property, like are you a stalker, what the heck? He's like, I'm calling the police. And she's like, oh my god, like no, like I just saved your son. And he was like, well, how did you know that he was like, he's like really confused, and he just thinks that she's like a stalker and a crazy fan who wants to see him, which is not the case at all. And yeah, so he ends up calling the cops and getting her arrested. And then she's like, her friend comes and, you know, gets her out, and she's like, oh my god, like I hate this man, he is awful, disgusting, hate him, despise his existence, he's an awful person, and hence to hate Adam Connor. And anyway, he ends up talking to his son, finding out what actually happened, and he's like, okay, well I think I need to apologize. And his son wants to say thank you and stuff like that, so he ends up going over, seeing her, talking to her, and she's like, I don't want anything to do with you, like go away. And he's like, please, like I insist, like come on, like let me apologize. And she only does it for the little boy. And anyway, I think she starts babysitting the kid, and they start forming this connection. Enemies slowly turns into lovers, and you know the drill. It's amazing, stunning, perfect. And like I said, this little boy is literally the most adorable. It's one of the things I love the most about single parent romances is the interactions with the kids, like especially like single dad romances. Like seeing the dad with their little boy or little girl is literally like, it melts my heart. It's so sweet and wholesome, and I love it so much. So the next book I'm going to be recommending to you today is Happily Letter After by Keelan and Penelope Wood. This book is phenomenal, one of my all-time faves. I absolutely love it. So this follows Sadie and Sebastian, and Sadie works for this magazine or newspaper or something, and she writes a specific column, and she runs this like Santa, letters to Santa column around the holiday period. And anyway, she ends up getting this letter mid-year from this little girl Birdie, and she's writing and she's like, I know it's not Christmas time, but blah 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 blah. Anyway, she's asking for a few things, and no, she's not asking for like toys or anything crazy. She literally wants new socks for her dad and some olives, and that's literally all she wants. And there's something else, but it's like so wholesome and adorable. And so Sadie's like, oh my god, like this is so cute, and she decides that she's going to get these things for this little girl and deliver them to her. And so she ends up getting the socks, the olives, and whatever else she asked for, but it was just like some really wholesome things. I can't remember exactly what it was. And she delivers them, and then they keep writing back and forth. Birdie keeps writing in, thanking her for the things and being like, oh my god. And anyway, she decides that she's playing this fairy godmother, and she continues to do this for a period of time. And then she ends up walking by the house where Birdie lives, and she sees a little like beret on the ground, and she decides that she's going to pick it up and just like drop it at the doorstep because she would assume that it is the little girl's. And so she takes it up and she puts it on the doorstep, and she's about to walk away, but then the door opens and there is standing Sebastian. Oh my goodness, I love him. And he thinks that she's like the dog trainer or something, the German dog trainer, might I add. And she decides to be like, yeah, no, that's me. I'm the dog trainer. And there goes the story. And anyway, she starts forming this connection with Sebastian, and then you kind of know where this is going. She's lying about being the dog trainer. It's gonna blow up in her face eventually. And yeah, they end up hating each other. He's really mean to her at first, as the story goes. And yeah, there ended up being a big plot twist in this one as well by Keelan and Penelope Ward. You know there's going to be a plot twist, but I was not expecting. I think I did call this one, but I was like surprised that I was actually right. But yeah, so she has this connection with Birdie, and who is the little girl, and that's why she decides to do all this and continue doing it, because she feels really connected to her. They have very similar like pasts in the terms of her mum also died and she lost her to the same thing. I think they lost both their mums to the same thing, so they form this connection. They kind of bond over that, and yeah, it's so wholesome and sweet, and I love it. The next book I'm going to be recommending to you today is another single mom romance, and this is the Takeover by T.L. Swan. This book was so surprisingly good. I read it earlier this month. I literally read it like last week, I think, and I didn't think much of it from the synopsis. Wasn't that intrigued, but oh my god, this ended up being such an amazing and hilarious book. So this follows Tristan and Claire, and Claire absolutely despises Tristan, and Tristan he works for a media company, and so does Claire, and Tristan takes over companies and like builds them up, and you know, and he wants to do that with Anderson Media, which is Claire's late husband's company, and he unfortunately passed away, and so she wants to keep the company, wants her sons to take over the company one day, and it's kind of going into the ground, but she's determined to save it. And Tristan sees that this is happening. He's like, I want to take over your company, and she's like, absolutely not, like that's not happening. And they have this meeting, and she is like, no, like you're not taking over my company, and she absolutely hates Tristan. And anyway, 3 days later he calls her and asks her on a date. And she's like no, like what the heck, absolutely not. But Tristan really wants to see her because he feels really drawn to her for some reason, and yeah, and she's like, no, and then it skips a couple years, I think, or maybe 1 year or something. And anyway, she's going to this conference in France, and guess who the guest speaker is? Tristan Miles. And anyway, they still have this like connection, but she still like is no, like, I don't like you, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But Tristan is very persistent, and they have this amazing like I hate you banter, but it's like I hate you but I don't really hate you, and their banter is phenomenal, hilarious, everything. And anyway, they form this amazing connection in France, and then obviously it's time to go back, and Tristan is really determined to keep what they had in France going, and he wants like a relationship with her. And Claire's very closed off because of, you know, everything that happened with her husband, and she has 3 sons, and she's like, why does he want me? Like, why would he want me? And Tristan is very determined, but she's like, no, like, I can't do that. And anyway, they go about it, they eventually, you know, things happen. But this book is so funny. Oh my god. Like, T.L. Swan's books are always funny, but this one was hilarious. I was like laughing so hard at some of the scenes in this book, especially with the kids. Her kids are crazy. They're crazy, but they're hilarious, and they don't really like Tristan. And Tristan's like, what the heck, these kids are insane. But he does end up forming this connection with them that's really, really wholesome and sweet. And yeah, this book was phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Like I said, didn't think much of it from the synopsis, but so glad that I read it because it ended up being such a phenomenal read. And yeah, that is the last book that I'm going to be recommending to you guys today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.